Ethan Carter's life had been ordinary, confined to the familiar rhythms of city life. He enjoyed the simplicity of coding, the quiet solitude of his small apartment, and the occasional thrill of a new video game. But on that particular evening, everything changed. As Ethan walked through Central Park, the sky was a deep shade of twilight, stars beginning to peek through the canopy of night. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of freshly fallen leaves. He was lost in thought, pondering over a complex algorithm that had been troubling him all day. Suddenly, a brilliant flash of light illuminated the sky, followed by a loud crash. Startled, Ethan looked up to see something streaking towards the ground, trailing smoke and fire. His curiosity piqued. He sprinted towards the source of the commotion. As he reached the crash site, he found a small, sleek spacecraft, unlike anything he had ever seen. The craft was smooth, metallic, and exuded an otherworldly aura. As Ethan approached cautiously, a hatch on the side of the craft hissed open. From the thick white mist, a figure emerged. She was tall, with silver skin that glimmered under the park lights, and large, luminous blue eyes that seemed to pierce through him. She wore a form-fitting suit made of a material Ethan couldn't identify, and her hair, a cascade of shimmering silver, flowed gracefully around her. The woman stumbled slightly, clearly injured. Ethan rushed forward, catching her before she fell. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice trembling with shock and concern. The woman looked up at him, her expression a mix of desperation and determination. "Please," she said, her voice melodious but edged with urgency. "I need your help." Ethan's mind raced. Who are you?" "My name is Leora," she replied, struggling to stand upright. "I'm from the planet Valtor. I need you to pose as my husband." The words seemed surreal to Ethan. He blinked, trying to process the situation. "Your husband? Why? What's going on?" Leora took a deep breath, her eyes darting around nervously. "I'm being pursued by dangerous individuals from my planet. They want to force me into a political marriage to control my family's assets and influence. If they capture me, I will be taken back against my will." Ethan struggled to grasp the magnitude of her words. This was no ordinary encounter. He was face to face with an alien woman in a dire situation. "But why me?" he asked, bewildered. "There are millions of people on this planet." Leora's eyes softened slightly. "I needed to find someone quickly, someone kind. My ship detected your presence and identified you as a potential ally. Human marriages are legally binding on Valtor, and if we can convince them we're married, they can't force me into another marriage. I know this is sudden, but I have no other option." Ethan hesitated. This was an enormous responsibility, and the stakes were clearly high. But as he looked into Leora's eyes, filled with genuine fear and desperation, he felt a surge of empathy. Despite the absurdity of the situation, he knew he couldn't turn his back on her. "Okay," Ethan said finally, his voice steady. "I'll do it. I'll help you." Leora's expression softened into a look of profound relief. "Thank you, Ethan. You've just saved my life." Chapter 2. The Proposal. Leora quickly led Ethan towards the spacecraft. The craft's design was sleek and futuristic, with soft, glowing lines that pulsed rhythmically. As they approached, a small hatch opened, and they stepped inside. The interior was filled with complex technology, blinking lights, and screens displaying alien symbols and data. Leora moved with surprising agility for someone who had just survived a crash landing. She began pressing buttons and flipping switches, the ship humming to life around them. "We need to leave immediately," she explained, her voice steady. "My pursuers could be here any moment." Ethan watched in awe as Leora worked. Despite the chaos, she seemed to have everything under control. "How did you end up here?" he asked, trying to piece together the story. Leora paused for a moment, then began her tale. "I'm from Valtor, a planet located in the Andromeda Galaxy. My family is one of the oldest and most influential on our planet. Recently, my parents died under mysterious circumstances, leaving me as the heir to our estate and responsibilities." She glanced at Ethan, her expression grave. "Certain factions on Valtor see my family's wealth and influence as a threat. They want to force me into a political marriage to seize control of our assets. When I refused, they sent enforcers after me. I managed to escape, but they've been pursuing me across the galaxy. I came to Earth because it's relatively unknown in the galactic community, and I hoped I could hide here." Ethan nodded, trying to take it all in. "And you think pretending to be married will stop them?" "Yes," Leora replied. "On Valtor, a marriage, regardless of the species, is a binding contract. If I'm already married, they can't force me into another marriage. It's my best chance to secure my freedom and protect my family's legacy." Ethan considered her words. It was a risky plan, but it seemed like the only option. "All right," he said. "So, what do we need to do?" Leora handed him a small device about the size of a credit card with a holographic display. "This is a marriage certificate generator. We'll input our details, and it will create a legally binding contract recognized on Valtor. Once we arrive, we'll have to present it as proof." Ethan looked at the device, feeling a mix of excitement and anxiety. This was all happening so fast. "Okay, let's do it." Leora began inputting her details into the device. As she worked, she looked at Ethan. "I know this is a lot to ask, but I have no one else to turn to. I promise you won't be harmed, and I'll do everything I can to protect you." Ethan nodded. "I believe you, and I want to help." Leora smiled, a rare moment of warmth breaking through her otherwise tense demeanor. "Thank you, Ethan. You're a good person." They continued entering their information, with Leora explaining the specifics of Valtorian customs and the importance of the ceremony they were about to fake. As they finished, the device emitted a soft chime, indicating that the marriage certificate was ready. Ethan took a deep breath. "So, we're officially married now?" Leora nodded. "According to Valtorian law, yes. But remember, this is just a cover. We don't have to go through with any actual marriage customs or ceremonies." Ethan chuckled nervously. "Good to know." As they prepared to leave, Leora glanced at him, her expression serious. "Ethan, once we leave Earth, things will get dangerous. The people after me won't stop until they've captured me, or I'm completely out of their reach. Are you sure you're ready for this?" Ethan met her gaze, feeling a newfound resolve. "I've never been more sure of anything. Let's do this." With that, Leora activated the ship's engines, and they lifted off into the night sky. Ethan watched as the Earth rapidly shrank below them, replaced by the vast expanse of space. He knew he was leaving his old life behind, stepping into the unknown, but he felt a strange sense of peace. For the first time in his life, he felt like he was part of something bigger than himself. Chapter 3. The Escape Plan. As the spacecraft hurtled through space, Ethan and Leora settled into a routine. The journey to Valtor would take several days, giving them time to plan their next steps and prepare for their arrival. Leora taught Ethan about Valtorian customs, language, and culture, ensuring he could convincingly play the part of her husband. Leora explained that Valtor was a highly advanced society, with technology far surpassing that of Earth. The planet was known for its crystalline cities, floating in the sky, and its citizens' unique abilities to manipulate energy. Leora herself possessed the power to control light, a skill she demonstrated by creating beautiful glowing patterns in the air. Ethan was fascinated by everything he learned. It felt like stepping into a science fiction novel, but this was real. He found himself growing increasingly curious about Leora's world and the challenges she faced. One evening, as they sat together in the ship's lounge, Leora shared more about her personal life. "My parents were great leaders on Valtor," she said, her voice tinged with sadness. "They always put the needs of our people first. But their sudden deaths left a power vacuum, and now those who seek only personal gain are trying to take control." Ethan listened, feeling a deep sense of sympathy. "I'm sorry for your loss," he said. "It must be hard, dealing with all this while grieving." Leora nodded, her eyes distant. "It is, but I have to stay strong. My parents' legacy depends on it, and now, with you by my side, I feel a little less alone in this." Ethan felt a warmth in his chest at her words. Despite the circumstances, they were forming a genuine connection. He admired her courage and determination, and he was determined to support her in any way he could. As they continued their journey, they encountered various challenges. At one point, they detected an unidentified spacecraft following them. Leora quickly altered their course, using her knowledge of interstellar travel routes to lose their pursuers. The tension was palpable, but they managed to evade the threat. During another tense moment, the ship's systems malfunctioned, causing a power outage. Leora and Ethan worked together to fix the problem, relying on each other's strengths. Leora's technical expertise and Ethan's quick thinking made them a formidable team. As they neared Valtor, Leora explained the plan for their arrival. "We'll need to make a public appearance to confirm our marriage," she said. "Once we're seen together, it will be harder for my enemies to discredit our union. We'll also need to gather allies who can support us against Lady Arya and her faction." Ethan nodded, absorbing the information. "And what happens if they don't believe us?" Leora's expression hardened. "We'll have to be prepared for that. My enemies will try to undermine us, but we have the truth on our side. And we have each other." Ethan felt a surge of determination. "We'll make it work," he said firmly. "We'll prove that we're a real couple, and we'll protect your family's legacy." Leora smiled, a rare, genuine smile that lit up her face. "Thank you, Ethan. You've been incredible through all of this. I don't know what I would have done without you." Ethan felt a flush of warmth at her praise. "I'm just doing what I can," he said modestly. "And besides, I think you're pretty incredible too." Leora laughed softly, a sound like tinkling bells. "You know, you're not like most humans I've met. You're different, in a good way." Ethan felt a swell of emotion. He had never felt this connected to anyone before, let alone someone from another planet. As they continued their journey, he couldn't help but wonder what the future held for them. Whatever it was, he knew they would face it together. Chapter 4: Arrival on Valtor. The final leg of the journey was tense. As they approached Valtor, Leora and Ethan prepared for their grand entrance. Leora had contacted a few trusted allies on the planet, arranging for their arrival to be discreet yet noticeable enough to make a statement. Valtor's atmosphere was a sight to behold. As they descended, Ethan saw the shimmering crystal structures and floating cities that Leora had described. The sky was a deep purple with swirling clouds of pink and gold. It was a breathtaking sight, unlike anything he had ever seen. They landed at a private docking bay where a small group of Leora's allies awaited them. Among them was Lord Valen, an elderly man with kind eyes and a dignified bearing. He was one of Leora's father's closest friends and a staunch supporter of her family. "Leora, my dear," Lord Valen greeted her warmly. "It's good to see you safe." Leora smiled, though there was a tension in her posture. "Thank you, Valen. This is Ethan Carter, my husband." Valen raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised, but he quickly recovered. "A pleasure to meet you, Ethan. Any friend of Leora's is a friend of mine." Ethan nodded, feeling slightly overwhelmed. "Thank you, sir. It's an honor to be here." As they entered the grand hall of the palace, Ethan couldn't help but feel a mix of awe and apprehension. The architecture was stunning, with crystalline walls that glowed softly, casting a serene light throughout the space. It was like stepping into a dream. However, the beauty of the palace was overshadowed by the palpable tension in the air. Lady Arya, Leora's aunt, was waiting for them, along with a group of her supporters. Lady Arya was a striking woman with sharp features and an air of cold elegance. She eyed Ethan with thinly veiled contempt. "Leora," Lady Arya greeted her, her voice smooth and calculated. "You've returned, and you've brought a guest." Leora stood tall, her expression calm and composed. "This is my husband, Ethan Carter. We were married on Earth." Lady Arya's eyes narrowed. "How convenient," she said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "And how do we know this isn't some elaborate ruse?" Leora met her gaze steadily. "We have a marriage certificate, legally binding according to Valtorian law, and we have witnesses who can attest to our union." Lady Arya's lips curled into a cold smile. "We'll see about that. Until then, consider yourselves under observation." With that, she turned and swept out of the room, her supporters following close behind. The tension in the air was thick, but Leora remained composed. Ethan turned to her, his heart pounding. "That went, well, all things considered." Leora sighed, a hint of weariness creeping into her voice. It was expected. Arya won't give up easily. We need to stay vigilant and gather more allies. Lord Valen stepped forward, his expression serious. You have my support, Leora, and many others will stand with you. But we must be cautious. Arya has significant influence, and she'll do whatever it takes to discredit you. Leora nodded. I understand. Thank you, Valen. As the day wore on, Leora and Ethan navigated the complex social landscape of Valtor. They attended a series of events, mingling with nobles and officials, all while under the watchful eyes of Lady Arya's spies. It was exhausting, but they managed to maintain their cover. One evening, after a particularly grueling event, Leora and Ethan returned to their quarters. As they relaxed, Ethan couldn't help but notice the strain in Leora's eyes. Are you okay? He asked gently. Leora sighed, sinking into a chair. It's just overwhelming. I knew this would be difficult, but I didn't anticipate how exhausting it would be. Ethan sat down beside her, taking her hand. You're doing great, and we're in this together. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. Leora smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. Thank you, Ethan. I don't know what I'd do without you. Ethan felt a warm flush of emotion. Despite the circumstances, they had grown close. He admired her strength and resilience, and he was determined to protect her at all costs. As they prepared for bed, Leora paused, looking at Ethan with a serious expression. Ethan, there's something you should know. Ethan felt a knot of anxiety form in his stomach. What is it? Leora hesitated, then took a deep breath. I've been developing feelings for you. I know this started as a desperate ploy to escape my enemies, but I genuinely care about you. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. He had sensed a growing connection between them, but hearing her say it out loud made it real. He took her hand, looking into her eyes. I feel the same way, Leora. This may have started as a charade, but it's become real for me too. They shared a tender moment, their emotions raw and open. It was a turning point in their relationship, solidifying their bond and resolve to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As they drifted off to sleep, Ethan couldn't help but feel a sense of hope. Despite the danger and uncertainty, he knew they had something real and worth fighting for. Chapter 5. The Final Confrontation. The following days were a whirlwind of political maneuvering and strategic planning. Leora and Ethan worked tirelessly to gather allies and solidify their position. They attended countless meetings, social events, and private gatherings, always under the watchful eyes of Lady Arya's spies. Despite the constant pressure, they managed to build a strong coalition of supporters. Many of Leora's allies were impressed by Ethan's dedication and willingness to stand by her side. His genuine concern for Valtor's well-being won over many skeptics, and their bond grew stronger with each passing day. However, the tension reached a boiling point when Lady Arya summoned them to a formal hearing. It was clear she intended to challenge the legitimacy of their marriage and discredit them publicly. Leora and Ethan knew this was a critical moment, and they prepared meticulously. The hearing was held in the Grand Chamber, a majestic hall adorned with intricate crystal carvings and glowing lights. The chamber was packed with nobles, officials, and curious onlookers. At the center of the room, Lady Arya stood, flanked by her supporters. Her expression was smug, confident in her victory. Leora and Ethan entered the chamber hand in hand, their expressions resolute. As they approached the central platform, Ethan felt a surge of nerves. This was it, the moment of truth. Lady Arya wasted no time, launching into a scathing attack. Leora, you claim to be married to this human, but where is the proof? How do we know this isn't just a desperate attempt to escape your duties and responsibilities? Leora met her aunt's gaze with calm defiance. We have a legally binding marriage certificate recognized by Valtorian law. We also have witnesses who can attest to our union. Lady Arya sneered. Certificates can be forged and witnesses can be bribed. What assurance do we have that this is legitimate? Ethan felt a surge of anger. He stepped forward, his voice steady and firm. We love each other. This isn't just about politics or power. It's about two people who found each other in extraordinary circumstances and decided to stand together. There was a murmur of surprise and approval from the crowd. Lady Arya's expression faltered for a moment, but she quickly recovered. Words are easy, Mr. Carter, but love? Love is not something that can be proven with words alone. Ethan felt a surge of frustration. He knew they were telling the truth, but proving it was another matter. He glanced at Leora, who nodded, her expression encouraging. Taking a deep breath, Ethan continued. We may not have been together long, but we've been through a lot. We've faced danger, uncertainty, and the constant threat of capture. But through it all, we've grown closer. Leora is brave, kind, and selfless. She's fought for her people, and she's willing to do whatever it takes to protect them. I admire her more than anyone I've ever met. He looked directly at Lady Arya, his voice steady. You may doubt our marriage, but our feelings are real, and we're not going to let anyone tear us apart. There was a moment of silence, then a ripple of applause spread through the chamber. Lady Arya's face twisted with anger, but she quickly composed herself. Very touching, Mr. Carter, but sentimentality will not save you. The law is clear, and we will see if your so-called marriage holds up under scrutiny. With that, she turned and left the chamber, her supporters following close behind. The tension in the room was palpable, but Leora and Ethan stood firm. As they left the chamber, Leora turned to Ethan, her expression a mix of relief and pride. You were incredible, she said, her voice soft. Ethan smiled, feeling a surge of warmth. I just spoke the truth. Leora squeezed his hand, her eyes shining. And that's why we'll win this, because our love is real, and no one can take that away from us. Over the next few days, the situation remained tense. Lady Arya and her supporters launched a series of legal challenges, trying to discredit the marriage certificate and prove that the union was a sham. However, Leora's allies rallied to their defense, providing evidence and testimonies that supported their claims. In the end, the tribunal ruled in their favor. The marriage was declared legitimate, and Lady Arya's claims were dismissed. It was a resounding victory for Leora and Ethan, solidifying their position and securing their future. As they celebrated with their allies, Ethan couldn't help but feel a sense of triumph. They had faced incredible odds and come out on top. More importantly, they had found each other in the process. As the celebrations wound down, Leora and Ethan stood on a balcony overlooking the city. The night sky was filled with stars, and the city below glowed with a soft, ethereal light. It was a moment of peace and reflection, a chance to look back on everything they had overcome. Leora turned to Ethan, her expression tender. I can't believe we made it, she said softly. Ethan smiled, taking her hand. We did it together. Leora leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper. I love you, Ethan. Ethan felt his heart swell with emotion. I love you too, Leora. They kissed, a tender and heartfelt moment that sealed their bond. It was the beginning of a new chapter in their lives, one filled with hope, love, and endless possibilities. As they looked out over the city, Ethan felt a deep sense of contentment. They had faced incredible challenges and come out stronger on the other side. Whatever the future held, he knew they would face it together, hand in hand. And so, under the starlit sky of Valtor, Ethan and Leora began their new life together, ready to embrace the future and all the adventures it would bring. They had found love in the most unlikely of circumstances, and they knew that nothing could ever tear them apart. Their journey was just beginning, but they were ready for whatever came their way. Together, they would face the unknown and build a future filled with love, hope, and endless possibilities.